A note: the following advice from Work-Life Imbalance is presented in lower quality audio because Derek is a dum-dum and forgot to check his equipment before recording. The quality of the advice remains unchanged. Bad.
Welcome to Work-Life Imbalance, an advice show focusing on workplace and lifestyle issues. Any resemblance to actual advice, living or dead, or actual wisdom is purely coincidental. I'm your monstrous manager, Frank Eastman.
And I'm your lovable office companion, Derek Lewis.
Today we'll be talking about body modification in the office in the deep dive before we address some audience questions and issues from the internet. But first...
Daily stand-up, that's right? That's right? Did I get it?
That's it. You win a prize.
Yes! Woo! What do I win, Frank?
The daily stand-up.
Fuck, that's it?
That's it. Sorry.
Oh. All right, for the daily stand-up, this is a question that I'd kind of pondered ever since kind of thinking it up. And it's kind of funny. Because let's just say that it brings on a lot of introspection and reflection on yourself.
Okay.
That may or may not be positive.
All right.
So, if you had to take on an apprentice, what could they learn from you?
Oh.
So like I said, I've done some thinking on this, not a ton. I didn't want to be the only one that had a lot of stuff prepared for this, but. Like I said, it brings on a lot of introspection and personal reflection. That really took me to some dark places because I was thinking,
yes,
what are my main qualities as a person? Obviously, I have some that I like about myself. I find that I think I can be charming sometimes. I can be funny. I'm not going to exactly set up a comedy workshop, but I'll throw a good joke in there from time to time.
All right.
But then when I started to think about what they would actually learn from me, I think most of the things that they would probably glean would be negative, such as obliviousness. That is definitely one, as exhibited by our previous episode, where you continually did that cruel bit on me, and I didn't notice.
You didn't notice.
They would don't even pretend like you're going to do it now. I swear to Christ. I know where you fucking live, Frank.
Okay. No, keep going.
Other things they would learn, probably procrastination. I'm definitely not as bad about that as I was when I was in college, but I still have a tendency to. Whatever I can do tomorrow, why do today?
So you could teach an apprentice procrastination.
They would kind of have to learn that on their own because obviously I would procrastinate about it. And so they wouldn't learn it directly, but by osmosis and or monkey see, monkey do, they would learn a lot of bad habits from that.
I will teach you about procrastination tomorrow.
In case you weren't taking notes, that's lesson 1. I think they could also learn how to properly spiral anxiety, or obsess about dumb shit you said to some waiter in some restaurant that has no clue who you were and forgot about it as soon as you left the restaurant. But that greeting where you said where they said, "How was your weekend?" and you said hi, or some other funnier rendition of that, or like how are you, and you say,
welcome to Shoney's.
This is terrible. Okay, exactly. So the other thing that I would teach them is how to not be able to think of something funny on the spot.
That's a skill I think we both have.
Especially when I set up the bit. I don't know what it is. When I try to give myself some When I try to give myself a runway for something funny, I always fuck it up. I don't know what it is. That's why I've always said, like, I've never been much of a Michael Jordan, but I'm a decent Scottie Pippen. Like, I can pass something good off to somebody so that they can slam dunk it, or I could take a pretty decent alley oop and make a layup with it. But that's about the extent. So if you had to take an apprentice, other than the obvious, like, apathy and other such qualities that you espouse, what could they learn from you?
Well, see, already I've got the basis, because always two there are. So I think, I've already got the model down. That's
Right.
probably how I'd go about it. I don't know if I had an apprentice.
Not a choice. Like, if you were forced to take an apprentice and teach them some skill, not necessarily a useful one, let's not limit it to that, but if you had to teach them how to be like you in some way, what would they learn?
See, I have kids, so I'm sort of already in that situation where...
Yeah. They are already kind of like well, I was going to say unwanted, but that's a little bit negative. They are, man, this is telling a lot about me. Anybody who's happy to be a parent, God bless you. You do you. That's great. But I can tell that I will never be okay having kids, because every time I think about a child, the words like obligation, responsibility, other such like negative connotation words are the first thing I think of.
Some free association. I say fatherhood. You say
jail. Ooh, that's nice. Keep going. Do a couple more.
I say son. You say
disappointment.
Oh shit! This is deep rooted, man.
Chance to be a serial killer. That's the second one.
No, I mean, I have said before, like, if I manage to get them all the way into adulthood and at no point do I come downstairs to find them covered in somebody else's blood holding a knife, I've succeeded.
And I totally agree with that. Like, that is a decent metric for parenthood. Because Jessica watches a ton of, like, Forensic Files or other, ID shows and whatnot. The parents that are on there, by and large, are not like, they're not like Ed Gein parents that are like, trampling on their children and completely fucking them up with their own fuck-uppedness. They're just normal people. And then their kids are like, killing somebody sounds fun. Let's do that.
You know what I'd like to do? Eat the neighbors.
Right.
No, I mean, like...
Boy.
Because it's one of those weird things. When you have kids, they don't necessarily turn out like you, and then you have to sit and think about, how is it that I turned out like me? And so, like...
What environmental factors fucked me up? How can I not pass it along to my
Exactly.
children?
It's like I would like them to be better, more well-rounded people than I am. Not that, like, my parents failed me or anything like that. It's just... I'm like, my kids have their own particular struggles and things like that, so I try to provide them the skills. Because if someone were to, like, if I were forced to take an apprentice and that person were to just follow along behind me taking notes, I don't know if they would turn out like me. Like, I have to assume that they would watch me make the mistakes that I make and try to do things in a different way. And
right, learn the ways not to do things.
Yeah, it's like I could see myself moving through the world just like destroying and laying waste and projecting ruin before me, and they're like, I think we could do better.
Yeah, they could either improve on the model that you were presenting or realize the futility of it. And since they probably are not going to take the same amount of joy in it as you do, it's just destruction for the sake of destruction, and that brings you joy. But then they'd be like, we're not really making a whole lot of money here. You can't really go to IKEA and buy a sofa with like death and destruction, unless like
Yeah.
unless you kill all the IKEA employees and just take the furniture. But that's kind of a
I was going to say,
bad
that is
option
called
overall.
pillaging IKEA, and
Right.
from a historical standpoint, I think we just call that irony.
Right. And the thing is, like, I think I think probably the worst thing you could do would be to go and like burn and pillage an IKEA, because the Swedes have always been the neutral parties in every conflict. So like that's like an immediate shot across the bow at Sweden. So we do not want to fuck up that relationship, I think.
No, I don't think we want to get on Sweden's bad side. Now, like, from a historic...
Hold on, one second before. Okay, IKEA is Swedish, right? Like, I'm not just talking out my ass
Yeah.
here. Okay, I leaned so hard into the IKEA is Sweden. I was not sure.
You know, now
Okay.
you've got me going, is IKEA Swedish?
Okay, yes, it is. Okay, yes, it is Swedish. Thank God,
Okay, that's what I thought.
I got it
All
right.
right.
I got it in one. There we go. We're making great podcast material here, Frank.
Two idiots try to decide whether or not IKEA is Swedish. This is great fucking radio.
Well, I mean, and you can't necessarily blame me because, like, you know, from an outsider's perspective, like every Scandinavian like language and whatnot, they have very similar properties. Until you're inside the whole Scandinavian language thing, it from the outside it may appear all to be the same. So I'm glad we got it, but I just wanted to check.
But I did have, like, as far as actually having an apprentice, like, now I've hired people to work, you know, with me, directly under me, in the same sort of job role as me, so that's kind of like that, I suppose.
Yeah, you're kind of choosing. It's like somebody. I'm hiring somebody that could have the qualities that I need in the job that I already do. So yeah, I could see that as being kind of along the same
But see, the
vein.
thing that I did, though, is I hired somebody who would be, like, a good foil for me.
Okay.
Like, she was nice. That, I mean, there we go. Got it in one. Ka-ching.
Right.
But no, she, you know, nice, bubbly, with a very outgoing personality, as sort of a counterpoint, so that we could cover the spectrum. Like, I had
Right.
dour and evil, and pessimistic and mean-spirited.
I would agree. I would agree. You absolutely have those covered for
So,
sure.
you know, somebody who was energetic and upbeat, I could use to lull everyone else into a false sense of security before I came in to crush
Right.
their hopes and dreams.
Okay, I can see that. When you first said that, I thought maybe you were going with like a, you know, we can rebuild this, you know, faster, better, stronger type of thing. Go and seek somebody that doesn't have the same, you know, weakness as you do. But more or less, it was, you know, you're just trying to find somebody that was somewhat complementary to your general shtick.
Exactly. And I mean, to some extent, it worked. I think to some extent also, you know, she left broken and with a dark core
Right.
that had formed, sort of like a pearl is formed through irritation inside the oyster.
Well, either way, you kind of got what you wanted, because if you couldn't make them to be as skilled as you are, but keeping the same level of happiness and optimism and things like that, you did have the experience of watching somebody's soul die. So, kind of a
I mean,
win-win.
Yeah, I call that Tuesdays.
Oh, all right. I think that's about as good a transition as we can make to the deep dive.
All right, so getting into the deep dive, what I wanted to talk about was body modification in an office environment. Specifically, like tattoos, significant piercings, that kind of
Okay,
thing.
so we're not talking about cybernetic implants. We're talking
I
about
want to, though.
Festooning.
Not,
Okay, for the first pass, we'll talk about festooning yourself with livery, and then we'll get into cybernetic implants that could make you better at the office.
yeah, I mean, tattoos are cool and all that, and
Agreed, absolutely.
yeah. So like, I just recently went out and got my first, and in a
Nice.
very obvious place. So I will be dealing with this in the office environment, I assume, and of course, like, traditionally it's been frowned on, and still it's frowned on.
Right.
The thing I was thinking, sort of most immediately was like Japanese business culture. They are like 100% okay with discriminating against people with tattoos.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that was definitely a hard line for a long, long time in Japanese culture. So I'm glad you finally took the step out and got those flames up your chrome dome that you've been wanting for so long.
No, that's exactly what I did, and it hurt like a bitch, I tell you. But
I'm sure it did. I mean, those parts around the ears and stuff. I mean, when I'm getting my hair cut and whatnot, which I don't mean to be rude, but some of us still get our hair cut.
Some of us just have to shave, and honestly, I think that's better.
But when you're getting your hair trimmed around the ears and stuff, like sometimes they gouge you a little bit and it hurts. So I can imagine like intentionally going to somebody and paying them money to do that, but 10 times worse for a longer period of time seems awful.
But at the same time, I wanted to look like Ghost Rider in the office, and how else am I going to go about doing that?
Yeah, since masks are not really office appropriate, you kind of had to just go ahead and festoon yourself manually.
Yeah.
I get that. So not to part the kimono too much, but so where generally is this new tattoo of yours? Because this is news to me as well.
Oh, so it's on the inside of my like right forearm. So it's definitely like, I don't think anybody's going to be missing it necessarily. It's right out there,
right.
Front and not center, front and off to the side. And as was
front and off to the side.
As was pointed out to me, I'm so like obsessive that most definitely I'm like, now I'm lopsided. So what am I going to get on the other side? Exactly. I'm like, I'm going to have to get something else, because I don't know if I can go through this world ever so slightly weighed down on the right side.
Symmetry is very important when it comes to that kind of stuff. See, I was thinking that for a moment when you started to say on your inner, I kind of went into a small headspace temporarily where I thought you were going to say on your inner thigh.
And then the screaming just started and did not stop.
Well, no, it was less internal screaming and more just like, because you said that it was going to be very obvious, so I thought maybe they had like relaxed the wardrobe requirements, and you got to wear those booty shorts that you've been wanting to show off for a while.
You know it. I'm wearing those short shorts.
Those Daisy Dukes. Yep. Okay, now this is where the internal screaming starts.
You know that
because it is coming.
You know they're my jean shorts when you can images. See the pockets.
just little ears of the pockets hanging out from the bottom. No, but I think that as far as our general area of the world, not like geographically, but the business world, I think that there have been a lot of big improvements on how people see body modifications. It's still not necessarily, it's not something that you are going to get a job for. Like, you're not going to walk through a software shop just festooned from head to toe in tattoos. And
he doesn't know shit,
be like,
but he looks sweet as fuck. So we're going to give that guy a job.
Right. Yeah, not going to get a whole lot of that, I'm sure. But people's minds are changing, and it's getting a lot easier for them to accept, differences of opinion when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I guess now is a great time to do it. But at the same time, some people, like, there's some old fuddy-duddies and things like that are still gonna give you some shit. How can we go about building up some resistance? Okay, so either we can build up some resistance to people shitting on you for it, or we can come up with some clever means of diffusing the situation.
Okay, all right, I've got one. So go ahead and come at me, bro.
I guess that's pretty decent.
Oh no! I was like, go ahead and come at me, like with your.
I thought that was your. I thought that was your defense.
Oh yeah, my defense is always going to be come at me, bro, because that is 100% on brand for me.
So unless your tattoo is of like My Little Pony or something like that, I would assume that it has only increased the intimidation factor of
Who
you.
you talking to,
so
Derek?
I was like,
how did you know? Twilight fucking sparkle all up on.
See, I would have gone with Fluttershy, but that's just me. I know that my gentle soul, I need to wear it on the outside, so it would be Fluttershy. No, but let's see.
Rainbow Dash, Tramp Stamp. Mm-hmm. We're rapidly running out of goddamn My Little Ponies.
Oh, I'm not gonna go deep in the cut on that one because I do not need other people knowing how many My Little Pony people I know.
All right, brony.
I wouldn't. I'm not a brony. I want that on record. I'm not a brony, but I have seen some of the animated cartoon.
There's no shame.
That doesn't make me a bad person.
There's no shame in your fandoms, man. That's all right. This is a safe place. This is a safe place.
No, I don't. There are some fandoms that there is shame. I'm not saying that's it. I mean, I'm not saying that's one of them. But no, I'm not gonna. There's no reason to put myself on blast about all the fandoms that may attract ire from other people. Okay, so
shit Derek thinks is totally stupid. Starting now. Let's alienate every single person that we can possibly think of.
No, that is not my intent. Okay, so I'm guessing that your thoughts going into this were that you may have to tackle some of these upcoming situations. So let's say that you're in a client meeting, maybe not necessarily with like the big wigs, but you're in a big meeting and there are going to be some people that you're going to be in a room with for a couple of hours. Do you go with the option of wearing a long sleeve shirt, or are you just prepared to, display that in all of its glory and just, reap the consequences?
I mean, if I'm going into a client meeting, and this is, I'll be completely honest, if I'm going into a client meeting where I need to be, representing the company and I don't know the client yet, I'm going to go with long sleeve, cover the tattoo, because I don't know. Now, in my history, I've worked with, more than one client that after getting to know them, it would be a boon.
Okay, so tattoos are, they can be covered. That's not a big deal. Like, there are a lot of strategies for dealing with those. So what about some other slightly more unconventional ones? Or maybe not even unconventional, but just ones that are a little bit harder to cover up, like, gauged ears. Like, that is something that once you've gauged your ears, you can't ungauge those ears. I mean, is that a nail in a coffin, or is that just something that you may have to that you can work around, but just may present some interesting.
So, are you suggesting that my
situations.
gauged up nose piercing was not the smartest idea?
I mean, it suits your face.
I mean, it's good to have a third nostril.
Absolutely. I mean, Jesus, the airflow must be incredible. But I'm just saying that when you walk up to the CEO of a company you may want to, like, I don't know, cover it up with some sort of like silly putty and color it flesh color again, just to mimic a well-formed human nostril.
I mean, yeah, no,
That's
definitely. And it's mostly kind of a gag thing so that I can take that out at like, a random moment during the middle of the meeting and just freak everybody out.
It's like my uncle when I was a kid. Like he had a wooden leg, and we didn't know about it for a while. And so at family parties, he'd be walking around and be like, "Oops!" and all of a sudden his leg would fall off. We would freak the fuck out. Holy shit! We would be screaming for like 5 minutes, and he was laughing his ass off. Like he thought that was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. My parents, on the other hand, and the rest of the parents for the permanently damaged children, they did not think it was nearly as funny.
See, and I admire his commitment to the bit, like getting that leg taken off just so that he could do that.
No,
so brave.
I do think a farm thresher had something to do with that. So it may not have been a purely conscious choice, but it was his choice to like hide it for like 5 years until we were old enough to appreciate that body parts should not come off, and just drop it at Thanksgiving. So that was a fairly long con on his part. No, but not exactly the best party trick if you're going for non-PTSD children. Because, I have thought about getting a tattoo for a long time. I think that they are, in general, pretty awesome. Like, I think that finding something that you want to put on your body for an extended period of time, that is very admirable. Being able to put, like, something that is a work of art on yourself, I think is an incredible opportunity. But at the same time, my thing is that I am so white bread. Like, I am the. If I was a flavor, I would be water. Like that is just me. Like, I have no. I feel that like people would know that I was an imposter. Like they see a tattoo on like my arm or my leg or something, and they'd be like, "You don't deserve that."
See, you went in to get the Fluttershy tattoo, but somehow you are so white bread it just turned into a mid-90s tribal armband.
Exactly. And the tattooer had nothing to do with it. My body is just imbued with some sort of alchemy that turns anything that would make me unique into something else that looks douchey. Like, I don't know what it is. I do not look like a person or act like a person who has any business having a tattoo. Maybe when I'm an adult, I will become interesting enough to be able to have a tattoo. But for now, I'm still without. I'm still unadorned as a person.
All right, Derek, would you like to get to an audience question?
I absolutely would, Frank.
All right. How do you pursue creative endeavors outside of the workplace, such as my own upcoming podcast, without hiding your identity? Sent in by Lurking in Loosedale.
This is a little topical because we currently have a podcast.
We do.
And most of the people that I work with, I don't want them really listening to it.
That's why I'm recording this deep underground in a bunker.
See, that's not a bad idea, but the problem is we do put this on the internet, and at least some people have access to it, so that's a problem. It will eventually get out, but
we have at least
you
two
did.
Listeners.
I was going to say, you do know that I post these on the internet, right?
Shit.
I figured you did, but I guess I didn't actually ask you.
Fuck, I just thought we were doing this for us.
Why? Why would we?
I don't know, because we don't work together anymore, and I figured you missed me.
Well, I do, but that's partially unrelated. No, this one's a little tough. And I'll preface this, just like basically everything that we give advice, are terrible advice to, is that it depends on both what your industry is and what the creative endeavor is.
So number one, I would suggest not putting your God-given Christian name on it and then talking almost exclusively about poop and food. That would be number one in terms of my suggestions.
What kind of assholes would do something like that?
Only
Frank?
idiots.
I mean, idiots. Like, there is...
The greatest of maroons.
I mean, that would be, like, that would be cultural suicide. To talk about nothing but shit and food and how likely it is that both of those things will encounter your mouth and then put your fucking names on it. Like, that would be stupid.
That would be idiocy of the highest caliber.
But yeah, so yeah, I think that it really matters what the people you work with are cool with. Because, you know, I'm sure there are some industries, like if you're a carny and you're worried about the people being concerned about what you're moonlighting about, that's probably not a founded fear. But if you're like...
Carnies are surprisingly conservative.
Really?
Yeah, who knew?
I did not know that about carnies. Yeah. No, but if you're like, you know, if you're like a youth pastor or something like that, you probably want to be careful about being spotted in the wild, especially if it's something rather salacious.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably not the time to put your My Little Pony /fic read aloud, podcast out there with your name. Yeah, your My Little Pony /fiction that is read out loud by Michael Caine. While very tasteful, having your name associated may come with some undue attention, I believe. No, I think that there are a lot of things you can get away with, by and large. One thing that is probably not going to fly is, you know, shit talking your coworkers or your boss, and that's why anytime I mention like that one time I had to walk it back saying that I had bad bosses. I have great bosses, by the way. I have the best bosses, and that's an audio. That is in stone, so it has to be true. It's absolutely impossible that I might cut out that part and leave only the I have bad bosses part.
And I would have said a couple episodes ago that, like, I trust you, and that I know that you would not betray that trust by chopping something together to say that I hate my bosses.
Hello, I am Derek Lewis, and I hate my bosses.
My bosses can suck a dick.
You heard it here first, folks.
So if we're talking about, like, two worlds colliding that probably shouldn't collide, what type of things are going to mix like oil and water? Like, what are we trying to hide? Like, I know that
our naughty bits
work,
usually. That's why we wear clothes.
Yeah, and at work you have to wear clothes to hide the naughty bits. But at home you don't necessarily have to.
I mean, for me, like, I went into this particular exercise with full knowledge that, like, I'm probably going to say some wacky, weird bullshit, and my name is going to be associated with it, and it's going to be out there, and people will find it. So I generally take precautions. It's not, an enormous amount of self-censorship, but I try to be cognizant. Like,
right.
I'm not going to say anything about people that I work with currently, and I don't use names, and I don't use identifying features for the most part.
Yeah, if somebody is listening to the podcast you currently work with, like, at best they will just have, like, the grim specter of the fact that you might be referring to them, which may be far more effective at correcting negative behavior. Because if you're talking about somebody, like, when you were generally talking about people who stand around you and talk to you too much, my first thought was, oh boy, that's not the shit I want him to say about me, so I won't, I'm not going to do that anymore. And as you can tell, I've stopped talking to you, Frank, because I don't want you to say that you have an important meeting and for me to feel bad.
I mean, it has been difficult to continue recording the podcast, given that we don't actually talk, and that we're trying to do so synced up using just, sort of written scripts. But I think we're doing a pretty good job. One of the big things is, like, don't, at least for me, like, you don't want to be on recording saying anything that might sound threatening and or violent.
Right.
Which, given that, well, I'm me, that can be a delicate dance through the tulips.
Right.
But...
yeah, you don't want anything that can actually be pointed to as, a true a true statement of threat that would hold up in a court of law. That is certainly not something you want in the wild.
And at the end of the day, there's, to some extent, you just have to accept that when you're going to put yourself out there on purpose, even not on purpose, I think it's almost like because we're doing this and we're putting it out into the internet specifically to be consumed by all three of our listeners.
Oh, wow. Did we gain another listener in the interim?
It just clicked over
Wow.
on my listener tracker.
Back
down to 2. Never mind. Shit.
Oh, fuck. Oh, it's because they just heard the part about the shit in the cake.
Yeah,
oh.
No, it's just not a good look. But yeah, like
No.
I'm specifically cognizant when I'm putting stuff out there that I'm going to be putting it out there. It's attached to my name. People might be listening to it. And at some point, like, yeah, folks are probably going to take offense, and that's going to happen, and, well, that's some shit. But I'm also taking sort of into my own hands. Like, if I get blowback about it, if someone's like, yeah, we would have hired you, but we noticed that you have a podcast, and, mostly you talk about whether or not people are jerking off in the stalls at the office, I'll be like, hey, that wasn't me. That's just apparently some of the stuff that people send in. There's a lot of shenanigans that go on in the bathroom at work. I didn't know this until I started a podcast talking about stuff that happened at work. But
if anything, I think that would be a feature. You are in a very specific position to actually detect those things. Because those could be significant work problems, and you know about them. You know how to identify them, because we have talked about it far more than is interesting on a podcast. And so you are in a, like I said, a very particular position to be able to identify it and to help them solve their problems.
Yeah, I mean, now, being that I've been producing a podcast about work, if someone were to come to me and say, what can I do in my office to improve the quality of life for most people in the office, I now know that it is to put some sort of guards in the bathroom to enforce things like people not jerking off and people washing their hands. Now we know.
Yeah, so I mean we have two problems that can be solved by bathroom monitors.
Yeah, I mean, who knew that we needed hall monitors in the bathroom? Now we know. We broke that story wide open.
Now we know.
Investigative journalism at its finest.
At its finest may be a bridge too far. Certainly at its most blue.
Well, I was
to guess.
I was using finest in the sense of granularity. Like,
I know you probably did air quotes around finest, but that didn't make it to the audio.
It is a thin and sandy investigative journalism, almost like silt, really.
Yeah, 300 grit sandpaper.
Yeah,
as far as our fineness. So let's think about it. obviously there is, if you're shit talking people that you work with and stuff like that, like that's going to cause a problem. What are some more, or what are some less obvious types of moonlighting that can be done that would cause problems?
Oh, like as part of a podcast or just creative endeavors in general?
Creative endeavors in general. So, like I said, shit talking people, that's obvious. Don't do that. What other things, what other type of moonlighting?
I mean, the one that most obviously comes to mind is the pornographies.
Yeah, I was trying to sidestep that one a little bit.
That's the kind of thing that gets you fired from being, an elementary school teacher, I guess.
I mean, there are enough people that have a problem with that kind of stuff. Like, I think that would just about get you fired from anything.
Except, apparently, being a math professor in Germany.
Really?
Yep, there was an article that I had saw where, this college... some college students figured out that their math professor was actually like a porn actor, and
current or former?
Former.
Okay,
but it's the kind of thing that in America it's like, well, that's it. You're no longer working with it. Like you're gone. You're out on your ear. But apparently they were like, okay, that's cool. Moving on.
See, that's very progressive because, it's not often that you come across those people that are open-minded enough to say, yeah, you did a porno, but that doesn't make you a bad person or incapable of teaching and molding young minds in a positive way. And that's pretty cool. I do feel that... And I think it's probably obvious, but I think that is going to be something that we have to deal with as a culture, as an entire world, as things go forward.
Well, I mean, now everyone has in their pocket a thing to take an unwanted picture of their peen with. And note, every picture that you take of your peen is an unwanted picture.
I was about to say, that is a universal truth that any picture that is taken of a penis that has not been specifically ordered from some sort of establishment.
There's no catalog in which that is a line item. No one is ordering this.
I mean, you obviously don't get the same catalogs I do, Frank. But no. There are a lot of people that 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, if the world doesn't explode, they may have some odd things that they have to answer for, just because of the ubiquity of it.
Yeah, no.
Just because, like you said, everybody can be their own porn director at the drop of a hat. That's going to be a difficult conversation in 15 or 20 years. And then think about another 20 or 30 years past that. Like, if things get even more ever-present, like eventually that's going to be on a resume. Like,
I got 10,000 likes on my completely unwanted peen picture.
Right, exactly. I'm not saying that that's a positive thing. That, in my mind, called me a prude, but I think that sounds terrible.
It's one of those...
That's a world in which I don't want to live.
It's sort of similar to what I was talking about before. Like, 15, 20 years ago, I would not have expected things to be where they're at today. And 20 years in the future, like, things that today I would be like, that sounds absolutely insane, might be like, it's commonly accepted that everybody's got naked photos of themselves floating around on the internet, and everybody's just like, yeah, that happens. We just don't talk about it, or shit. It might become double backflip. That's how you get jobs. Like, who knows? It's one of those things like, you don't have any nude photos of yourself on the internet. Does that suggest that you're ashamed of yourself and your body? I don't know if that you'll be the right fit for the corporate culture here. And it's like...
I think that very well may be the case when, like... like Pornhub, basically starts acquiring other services. So eventually they're going to have like a phone company. They're going to have certainly some sort of technology company, physical hardware company, something like that. So eventually they're going to be in every space.
So you said that, and I immediately started thinking of like Pornhub and LinkedIn. That's the new hiring in the future. 20 years from now, let's go ahead and put a pin in it. I am prognosticating 20 years from now, like an integral part of your resume is going to be like your naked pictures.
Right, in LinkedIn, like they have plugins to like Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. There'll be one for Pornhub. God.
We're doomed. Like, hopefully there will be rules against ageism, because 20 years from now, I apparently won't be able to get a job.
Yeah. Even if I maintained my, even if I was the same splendorous specimen of a man that I am today, 20 years from now when that becomes a requirement, that still maybe put me in the bottom percentile. So that's not an equation or a factor I wanted to come into.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that nobody wants to see me naked, but I will go ahead and say that the only people who want to see me naked are really weird, and they exist on like the darkest, most terrible parts of the internet.
I, for one, hope that the TSA never gets hacked, and because we've been through the airport a lot, and I'm worried that those scanners have some very lewd photos of me.
Wait,
not because
now, you're completely right, but it could be a boon for us, Derek. Like 20 years in the future, when we're laying around trying to figure out how to pad out our resume, we'll be like, leaked photos from the TSA machines. Here I am in all of my
whatever. Yeah. I can't imagine any world where that would be a positive thing for me. I'm just throwing that out there. So
you thought Black Mirror was bad,
let's hope that...
and now we have created a new futurescape that is even more terrible. Shall we take an issue from the internet?
All right, this is from internet user. There's something wrong with the usernames on this website. These people are stupid. You can cut that out. That is some editorializing that does not need to be on the podcast. Does anyone know of some do-it-yourself home security hacks? My SO and I both were startled by something last night. I happened to sleep mostly through it, but my SO literally had to wake me up to check all the doors and windows. I mentioned this morning jokingly that there must have been a ghost in our house last night because I woke up totally terrified. Okay, those two words don't belong together. My SO then went white as a sheet and told me they experienced something similar. We aren't too into the whole ghost scenario, but are definitely concerned maybe we need to set up security just to be safe. Someone could have been in our house, and if that's the case, there isn't one person we were close enough to living near us that would play that kind of trick on us. The problem is we are flat broke until Tuesday. So this is an immediate need, apparently. Is there anything we might be able to put together from common household supplies? I'm sorry to say we are childless and thus lack about 75% of the shit Macaulay Culkin had in Home Alone. So most of those types of ideas are out of the question. Also, no dogs live here, unfortunately. Just lazy cats. Thanks in advance to anyone who genuinely has input. So, I was a little sad to read that he had already kind of ruled out the Home Alone thing, because that was the first thing that I had.
Exactly, that's where I was going. I was like, paint can on a string at the top of the stairs. Done.
Definitely. Spiders in the bread box, or in the little flower jar, or in the jewelry case. Maybe those are... Maybe we want to deter people before they get in the home. So just planning slapstick stuff for them to find while rummaging through our valuables is not the best thing.
I think just a sign on the outside of the house that says, "Warning, completely and totally filled with spiders,"
That absolutely would keep me out. You wouldn't even have to say, like, filled with spiders. Just tell me that there are more than one or two spiders, and that is enough. Like, that would be plenty for me to not want to go in the
Fake
home.
sign says condemned by the health department for reasons of poisonous serpents.
See, snakes don't bother me. It would just be spiders and maybe, like, crickets. Like, I don't care what you tell me. Crickets are gross. Like, they got them little, like, them little, like, insecty mouths, and they're not supposed to bite you, but they could. They totally
They've
could
just
bite
been
you.
biding their time, waiting until Derek picks one up to go, I'm gonna bite him.
That's what they're all thinking. That it has to be. So these people are flat broke. Let's not put a timetable on it. Yeah. What if this was like Monday and they were flat broke until Tuesday? So they just literally need something that night. Maybe in that case, you should just, like, I don't know, take turns, like set a watch and have somebody wielding some sort of weapon.
It probably only would work down here. But what I'm thinking is get a 12-pack of Coke, open each and every single can, pour half of it out, and then leave the half-drank open Cokes all throughout the house. Soon you will have summoned a gigantic swarm of fire ants and or yellow jackets.
Yes.
Done.
Yes. You are absolutely right, and I will not even remotely argue about the efficacy of that because, that is absolutely going to happen. That's probably why I just started drinking diet drinks, because those little fuckers don't care about aspartame. They only want sugar. But no, you would have, like you think Sharknado was scary? Like, Antnado is what I am, like, truly going to be terrified of. That would absolutely happen. Like, in minutes, you would have billions of these little bastards just crawled around the house. My problem is that while that may be effective to deter or turn away any would-be vagabonds, how do you get them back out of the house?
I mean, you don't. At this point, you just have, like, that's just now a feature.
Do you just have to gain their trust so that they only use their powers for good? Like, how do you cohabitate with your new weapon?
I didn't think that all the way through yet, but it's not important. They're flat broke until Tuesday, and they need this now. And needing it now. Yes, but on
Tuesday they will have to. I get it, but on Tuesday they will have the most expensive pest control bill that anyone could possibly imagine. I mean, they would have to call, basically the Ghostbusters. Like, they're the only people that could. Technically, yeah, they probably would have to call the Ghostbusters because the ants would kill all the living inhabitants. And since they died in a horrible way, their spirits would be floating around. And the Ghostbusters would need to take care of that. So they're flat broke. Let's say they've got $50 left in the bank account and nothing else to spend it on. What could you get for $50 that would provide some sort of either actual or, by appearances only, defenses for your home?
Get a couple of bottles of Jack Daniels and some guys from the bar, and they're just going to sit in your living room and drink all night long and make sure that nobody comes in to wreck stuff. Now, when you wake up the next morning and you find all of your stuff is wrecked...
I was about to say, it would not be intruders or unknown peoples who would be wrecking it, but it would be those drunk guys. They would wreck your shit. They wouldn't steal your shit, but certainly you would be buying a new flat screen TV, for sure. So I was thinking, if time is not necessarily a factor, like if they could wait a couple days for the post to come, I was thinking, we have we live in a wondrous era where you can do a lot of things with like the Internet of Things. There's a lot of home automation tools that you can use. I mean, you can rig pretty much anything up to an Arduino. So if you have just a touch of programming acumen, I think it would be relatively easy to rig up some sort of automated turret. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, and it may be really hard to shut off once you started it.
So here's my thought. We don't have a lot of money, and we need to make sure that we're safe. So what we do is we get some web-enabled cameras and install them.
Okay.
But since we don't have, like, the money to hire a security company, we just turn them on and then make publicly available the URL to go and see the live feed and have the internet at large watch us while we sleep to make sure
Jesus
that
Christ.
nothing untoward happens.
Okay. Let me list the holes in your plan. First of all,
Safe as houses, man. I'm telling you. There's nothing. This is a foolproof, watertight plan.
I mean, I guess I said there are a lot of reasons, but like the only reason I can see is because it's kind of creepy. But I guess I'm not coming up with a whole lot of other reasons.
I mean, and what you need to do is make sure that you've got an overlay that includes like your physical address and your phone number, just so
Right.
that if people need to know where to send the cops.
Once again, I'll make reference to the planes, buying a plane for the peanuts analogy. If I know anything about the internet and what they do when they find a real address for a real person, there is nothing positive that will happen with them having your address.
They'll send the cops.
The best you could...
I saw a news story on it.
Yeah, they'll send the SWAT team. And that is not a positive thing. But yeah, I don't know if I would want, like... I know that, like, I'm sure the government is watching whatever I do. I have come to terms with that. And honestly, since the inception of, like, you know, cell phone cameras and stuff like that, just go ahead and assume that somebody's watching everything you do. And once you eventually become comfortable with that, like, it doesn't get weird anymore. If they want to see me, like, manscape and, you know, do the other unsightly things I do when I think I'm alone,
There's
that's
a lot of
fine.
trimmers involved. There's a lot of trimmers, and then really weird poses
Weed
involving
whackers.
like limbs propped up on sinks.
Yeah, we're not talking about like actual human trimmers. We're talking about like hedge trimmers and things like that. Like that is lots of personal protective equipment and gasoline involved in the manscaping. But no, I don't. You know, I don't think that anybody wants to see that, and if they do, I worry about them not. I don't worry about my privacy. I worry about what happened to them to where they want to watch me do this shit. But no, so there is nothing good about having other people, you know, strangers willingly watching me do this stuff. I would say so. So my problem is most of your strategies are more. I think they're perfectly in line with the whole Home Alone tactic thing. Most of Macaulay Culkin stuff is to punish people once they were in the home. I'm thinking more like how can we keep them out of the home to begin with? Because even if they don't steal some shit, I don't want them coming in and tracking mud. Like I don't want them finding my stash of Reese's eggs. Like I want them to be outside
Two
of my
words,
home.
active camouflage.
if they can't see the home, they can't break into
Exactly.
the home.
Like, it just, it bends the light. It's taking what's behind the house and showing it to the front of the house. So what they end up doing is they break into the neighbor behind your house's house. Problem solved.
I mean, So, for a homeowner, I think that is perfectly viable. The problem is, I live in an apartment. And so, if I put active camouflage around my part of the apartment, it will merely look as if a piece of the building is missing. There will be, I think that would attract more attention, because people will be wondering where the fuck my apartment went. I don't think that would deter anybody.
An apartment. Okay, here's the thing. So go out front, take the number off the door of your apartment and swap it with someone else's number. So when they come to rob your apartment, they rob your neighbor's apartment. Solved.
I see you are clearly in the problem-solving business tonight, but you're also in the problem-creating business, because when UPS comes to drop off my package of veritable sundries that I have ordered from the internet, they will drop it at the wrong apartment. And
from last year.
Well, the thing is, I'm not as worried about not getting the things. I'm more worried about my neighbors getting the boxes and being terrified about the people that live around them. Because there is, it's not always that I'm ordering, terrible, despicable things, but, occasionally you want some personal products in there, and I don't need my neighbors knowing what I plan to do with those. I think that by and large, if somebody wants to break into your home, there's not a whole lot that's gonna stop them. So I think the next best thing is to have some sort of interior design that would make it difficult for them to discern where your valuables are. I'm thinking, similar to the Japanese game show, where the contestants are made to bite things, and they have to guess what is made of chocolate and what is actually the true object. And so, I think that you should have lots of valuables around your home, and half of them are made of chocolate.
I was going to say, are all of your riches chocolate, Derek?
Primarily. Actually, this laptop is getting a little warm, and so it may melt soon. So we may need to cut the podcast off at some point. I don't want my chocolate melting.
See, I was thinking that they said they're on a budget, and you said that if they're going to get into the home, you need to make sure that they're not going to steal anything. They could use my methodology, which is just to not actually have anything that's worth fucking stealing.
10 points for effectiveness, but you may lose a little bit of quality of life.
Or get a bunch of sacks, stencil a $sign on the side of it, and then go rob other people.
Oh, God, this is not where I thought you were going. I thought you were going to say, fill the bags full of, torn up magazines and things like that. And so when they break into your home, they see this, Scrooge McDuck-esque pile of money and think they've got it all, and they just grab all the money bags and run out.
I like this idea.
I think my idea is better. Yours was just encouraging further vandalism, which I don't think we can be a party to on the podcast.
Well, if someone's come into your house and stolen all of your shit, then you go steal someone else's shit, and now you've got shit.
I think you're talking about capitalism, Frank.
Yes, that is at its most basic level how it works.
Yep. Oh, all right. Well, I think it is about time to punch the clock. What do you think?
I think it is.
If you have any questions you'd like for us to answer on air, send them to questions@wlicast.com. They don't have to be work-related, and at this point, they're pretty much guaranteed to make it on the show. And you can also send anything around the internet that you see as funny that we could make some funny advice out of. Please feel free to send them to that as well. Send your feedback or comments to feedback@WLIcast.com. You can also visit us on Facebook at facebook.com/WLIcast or on Twitter at WLImbalance and use the hashtag WLIcast.
This has been the Work-Life Imbalance Podcast. I'm Frank Eastman.
I'm Derek Lewis.
And with that, I think we're going to have to transfer you.